Alright, so first up, we have a video called Blight Survival. Everything you need to know. Gameplay, combat, world. This is by Force Gaming on YouTube. Let's get right into the video.
So we get the reveal of a new upcoming game this week, which is always exciting. This one's called Blight Survival.
Keep it fresh.
It is a medieval cooperative action horror roguelite set in an alternate 14th century.
Can I just say that the genres getting thrown onto these games is getting a bit ridiculous. Action, combat, roguelike, blah, blah, blah. It's like you need 3 or 4 words to describe a game's genre these days. It's getting insane.
In this game, we play as a knight fighting back this blight, which is pretty much amounts to a zombie infection. And the game's main loop has us moving through these areas, collecting loot, progressing at your account as there are roguelike elements. And then the combat, which is said to be a hybrid of Dark Souls and Mordhau. This information coming straight from the developer, who, by the way, as of the...
I gotta say, the Souls-like genre, another genre, anything like Dark Souls is just really popular right now. So many people are making like high difficulty level games.
The showcase is a team of 2 people who are making this game. It's pretty crazy. There's been a fair bit of hype drummed up around this big reveal, and watching it myself, I thought, yeah, this looks pretty cool, and wanted to dive in to figure out what we knew about the game. So what do we know so far about Blight Survival?
Well, let's go back for a second.
What we
look at that UI. Just a simple little bar down here, like two little bars down here, and then like it looks like a day-night indicator. That is clean, but it's got enough like nuance to it. Like the lines look etched and like fading a little bit, and the symbol for the day-night cycle is like nice looking but clean. I love it. That is nice to see. The super minimalistic, like clean UIs is something I really enjoy in a game.
Knew about the game. So what do we know so far about Blight Survival? Well, heading on over to the Steam page, they describe this game as a 4-player co-op action horror roguelite where you and your
4-player co-op action horror roguelite. It's like, this is exactly what I'm talking about. The genres, they're getting out of control. Okay.
Are tasked with putting an end to the blight. There's a few bullet points. They say you'll fight with up to 3 friends. So we've got 4-player co-op, taking on both men and monsters with this dynamic action combat. There will be a large selection of weapons. These include melee and range from what we've seen, as well as armor to collect, all of which can be customized to fit different.
The armor looks so nice. Like the reflections, the texturing and detail on it, it looks sick.
Playstyles will collect a variety of other loot, consumables, and resources, but they say here you must remember that what has been found can once again be lost. I believe this is touching on the game's permadeath system. And then finally it says we will explore this war-ravaged land. It has a huge map filled with secrets and plenty of coin to be found. So as is generally the case with Steam descriptions, kind of vague stuff, a little bit like flowery language as they talk about the game. But we got a lot more information about this title, not only from that gameplay reveal trailer, but much of this actually comes from a fairly detailed blog post that the developer put out, touched on how the game is structured and laid out, saying, at its core, it is a simple gameplay loop. Get in and get out. However, each playthrough will be...
Wait, so is this just another extraction game? Like, are they playing off of the success and hype of, like, Escape from Tarkov, but in medieval world, basically? Medieval world with like a crazy fantastical blight system. This could be interesting. This could be really interesting. Different
than the last, as we're developing semi-procedural elements affecting the weather, choke points, spawn points, patrol patterns, time of day, time of year, and so on.
Anything procedural is really nice. Anything where it's not just set in stone and happens the same way every time. If you can mix up the gameplay experience, make it a little bit different, a little bit more, I don't know, nuanced or enjoyable each time you play, that's huge. That is huge.
1. You are free to pick and choose whatever route you fancy, as the game doesn't have a linear design and you can roam freely. To further this, deadly fungi spores gradually move around the map, effectively turning it into an ever-changing living maze, thereby forcing you to adapt to the circumstances.
So
what's really interesting and kind of laid out clearly here is that they are going to have like one set map, interconnected, kind of spiderwebby, like I mentioned, with all the different paths and ways to go in and out of areas, but it will be ever changing because of their semi-procedural elements, but also because of this spreading spores that are going around the map. And this is going to change the paths that you want to take from one place through the next. And yeah, you're moving in and trying to survive and collect loot. They went on further.
That's really interesting.
Say, you start the game with poor equipment and have to kill, loot, and explore your way to the spoils of war. Should you die, you'll lose everything upon death, although knowledge will carry to your next character in your bloodline. So it may be advised to return to camp.
Your next character and in your bloodline. So it's literally like it's like how the medieval times were, where it's like you basically live to like you live long enough to have a kid and you go to war and you die at like 30 or 40 years old. It's so true to life. It's so realistic.
Upgrade, enhance, store, and customize your equipment to stand a better chance in the next run. This in itself and the deep customization we have planned will make for a lot of fun and challenging experiences. Once we have locked down the formula and have a solid core gameplay loop, we'd be expanding with new biomes, items, modes, and enemies to keep you coming.
Did you guys see that UI for the weapon switching? That's what I'm talking about. It looks cool, but it's also simplistic and clean. There's a lot to be said for that. Not enough games have like a nice, clean, simple UI. I mean, it's definitely becoming more popular, but it should be everywhere by now. Like, it's so nice and so well liked. What do you guys think? Do you prefer a simple, minimalistic UI, or do you want something with a lot of effects and a lot of graphics and a lot of like blah blah blah?
Back for more. So from the way they're describing this, it looks like we have almost like a hardcore action survival game that's also kind of Tarkov-y in nature. You go out into the world,
that's what I'm saying.
Do what you can, you try to survive, and you can make your way back to camp to store some of the stuff, realizing that when you die, you'll lose everything that you had on you, except for this progression that you carry over, which is again kind of like the roguelite elements, which let's dive into that. At another point, the developer had mentioned that they are planning to have this talent and trait system that carries through your bloodline. So it will specifically be talents and traits that do carry over.
This is so interesting. Let my skills pass on through my genealogy. Let my sons and my sons' sons carry on the torch. It's kind of cool.
Meaning that this passes to your next of kin upon death, it passes to your next character. So that is a roguelite progression. Many games do this. It's fairly common in the genre. You unlock various abilities or passive skills that carry from one character to the next.
The Blight.
So you have a good run and you get fairly far, you get a few solid upgrades, you run back to camp to store some of the weapons that you're carrying, you go back out, but if your character dies, everything you stored in
the actual combat, it does look fun. Like and the little like mini I don't know if you want to say cutscenes, but just animations, the little animations of like kill moments and stuff. It makes it look enjoyable, like a lot of fun to play.
Camp stays there, and you carry
over the tackle,
that trait system through the bloodlines. And different roguelites will handle this sort of progression, what you keep and what you lose in different ways, but it's a fairly interesting way that they're describing of doing this, where you have the opportunity to keep some of what you've collected on a run outside of that bloodline trait system that carries over. So there's a lot of looting that takes place in this game. We saw a bit of this in the trailer. We saw the player looting things off of bodies. We saw them pick up a skull cap, resources like light leather and steel ingots, as well as salt mineral, and these had different rarities to them as well. There was like common, uncommon, and
gather
rare.
those
we
materials.
also saw the player just straight up open a loot chest. This had a sword inside. It was of an uncommon rarity. It had stat meters for different things. There was attack, handling, speed, and block, and also will look to be 2 unidentified enhancement slots, which presumably you would identify and get some bonus perks from them. But there was even more than looting bodies and opening chests. We also also saw the player pick up a bow off of the ground, which was then immediately equipped, and they used it before swapping with a radial menu back to another weapon. Now let's talk a little bit about
pretty cool.
the combat.
Just having items scattered in the real world, like, that you can actually physically see. Because, I mean, yes, the looting system, like opening up a chest and finding out what's inside, that's fun too, but it's kind of cool for the realism aspect. Like, if you're in war, if you're in, like, a crazy, like, blight-stricken world and there's zombies, right? I would think, in the chaos, some weapons and random items would be scattered upon the ground. So you would find things. It's just kind of cool, the realism
in this game. The developer has actually specifically described this game's combat as a hybrid of Dark Souls and Mordhau. Now
And here we are with YouTube ads.
We got a glimpse of combat from this trailer. The Dark Souls reference is easy to figure out from what they've shown.
Yeah.
It's also just so happens.
I love it, yeah. I love the slow wind up to like the heavy impactful strikes. That's totally like a Dark Souls thing.
To be what people basically say when referencing just like modern day third-person action combat, you know, light and heavy attacks, a stamina bar, attack team combos, dodging and blocking, all of that standard stuff.
Man,
but it's the more
this tackle with the like face stab, that is so cool. It looks like a lot of fun to be able to do that.
Mordhau reference that's quite a bit surprising to me, mainly because Mordhau is a game with crazy levels of depth. I mean, here is a list of just some of the melee combat system things that you can do in Mordhau. They've got flinching, where your attacks are canceled if they are hit mid-animation. There's attack manipulation, where during any attack you can alter its trajectory, the way it's going. There are reverses and spins. You know, most melee combat games will have
so it's very nuanced. If there's like 1v1 stuff or like, you know, PvP or whatever you want to say, it's very nuanced. It's like a high skill game. There's so many ways to influence the course of the battle, the action, the combat. Oh man, okay. Kind of a high skill one then.
The parry system, Mordhau also has riposte, where you can counter immediately after a parry. There are feints, where you can cancel any attack early in its animation. There is chambering, where if you attack in the same direction of an opponent's attack, you will deflect theirs and then counter with yours.
I don't know if we're seeing all of this in the little bit of the gameplay trailer that we saw of this game, Blight. So maybe they're just saying that it's like slightly inspired by this Mordhau game. I'm not sure.
Morph attacks, where you can change the attack type mid-animation.
What do you guys think? What would be cool to have included? What kind of aspects of this Mordhau game that he's talked about would be nice to have in this Blight survival game?
They've got kicks. There are clashes where identical attacks will counter and deflect off of each other. There's even a disarm system where if you're at low stamina, you can drop your weapon. I mean, it's absolutely crazy. Now, it's very hard to tell just from this initial trailer and what we've seen from this game's development. But I would be pleasantly surprised if Blight Survival has anywhere near the depth of melee combat as a game like Mordhau. Because, it's just absolutely insane.
And again, I didn't really see much of that. Much of what he mentioned of Mordhau in the quick little gameplay trailer. I mean, we saw like I said, tackling, that looks really unique and that looks fun and it's different. So maybe if they're referencing Mordhau just based on like, hey, combat in our game is really nuanced or like really unique. Like there's different types of things that you can do, and you would say the same about Mordhau, then I could see the similarity, the comparison.
Very, very in-depth technical melee game, and that would be great if more games did stuff like that, even if it's just certain elements of it. They don't need that whole list, you know? Also in the trailer, what was interesting was we saw this stealth section where the player was crouching and crawling
there's a
past
stealth system as well.
NPCs that were chattering. I saw a lot of people being like, hey, that doesn't make sense. He's wearing plate armor. How is he being stealthy? And it
would be like, clink, clink. It would not be stealthy at all. But, hey, still cool to have a stealth system in a game.
Developer actually touched on this in a Reddit thread where they're like, yeah, this was kind of just like a time restriction. Maybe you wouldn't be as stealthy crawling around in the mud with your plate armor. Oh, and at the end of the stealth section, we also saw a stealth takedown, which is pretty neat. This game obviously has a way where you can surprise enemies and just kind of like instantly eliminate them. Now, in some of the development footage that they've shown as they've been making this game over the course of the past year, I'll touch on the development in a moment, but we saw some footage of their longbow in action. You know, it's a basic range attack, right? But what was really cool about this clip is it also showed that it appears like these projectiles will interact with certain objects in the environment and not just NPCs that you're trying to get a headshot on, which is a nice little touch, a nice little detail. Yeah. There have been a few other interesting systems that we've seen about the development of this game. This came through post of theirs on the Unreal Engine subreddit. They showcased a grab and a hostage system where you can hold onto enemies and use them as a shield basically temporarily to deflect projectiles presumably from other enemies. That was really neat. We've also seen various types of world interaction. So in the gameplay trailer, we noticed there was a shrine which you could make an offering to.
That's pretty cool.
Presumably would give you like an item or a buff. There were also things in the environment that you could interact with to unlock some lore in the game. But then another one of their development posts was them showcasing all of these different realistic interactions between opening and kicking open doors, picking up objects.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Spaces, just some really great looking.
Just different ways to interact with the world and making it look more, I don't know, more interactive, or like making you feel more like you're in it. Like just real things happening. Oh, I gotta squeeze through here. Yes, okay, avoid the zombie that's right behind me. Turn around, get ready to tackle him, you know, whatever.
And natural looking animation work. And then also the developer had mentioned in the game's subreddit that there will be some sort of customization visually. Someone asked if you'd be able to like change the color of the knight's armor, and they replied that yes, customization will play a big.
The shield through the face, cutting the head in twine into. That was epic. That was nice. Okay, what was this? Customization of character plays a big part in how the game is played. Nice.
Roll into this game. Now, next I want to talk about the development of this game, because this is where things actually get quite interesting. This game is being made by HiMrStudio, a development team, as I mentioned earlier, of two people who have made what we've seen so far.
That's crazy. It looks really good for being made by two dudes.
Now, in that fairly lengthy
maybe there's
blog
ladies.
post
I don't know.
where they described what this game is, they also touched a bit on the history of its development. Now, from that and some threads on Reddit, we learned that the game has been in development for roughly 1 year. Both members of the studio have been working on it in their spare time. One of them works in the industry as a gameplay and technical animator. The other one works as an animation director. And their hope now is to move on to make this like a full-time gig and add more people to the team. Now, if you're wondering, how is it possible for two people to make what we've seen so far? Because yeah, this thing looks really good.
Yeah,
well,
it's
again,
clean.
They both have extensive experience in the industry. They both currently work in the industry and are just doing this as part-time. But the other answer, simply put, is just Unreal Engine 5 is amazing. When discussing the decision to use this engine, the developer said, UE5 looks amazing right out the box, and once you start tuning the knobs, you can fairly easily obtain impressive next-gen graphics. Now that we're aiming for the best quality possible, it was a no-brainer to opt for Unreal Engine. We also get to take advantage.
Yeah, that's the thing right now, man. Oh, Unreal Engine 5. Unity doesn't really have an answer for Unreal Engine 5 right now, I feel like. It's just not on that level. Unreal Engine 5 just blows Unity away right now. It's crazy. It's absolutely insane what they can do with that engine.
Of all of their amazing assets, such as various libraries. As an indie developer, our budget is limited, so getting free access to high quality assets is a huge win. Unreal Engine also only takes a 5% royalty once you earn more than $1 million USD, which is also a very attractive benefit. So yes, Unreal Engine has just made it very easy for small development teams to make things that are quite impressive looking. And this thing, yes, it does look quite impressive. So the next question is, when can we play? Well, the unfortunate reality is no time soon. The game is currently in a pre-alpha state, and as it turns out, this gameplay reveal was largely aimed at drumming up interest in the concept.
Yeah, they probably worked on one little area like really, really, really hard. Like that's a common tactic. You either make a huge area, so essentially like 20 minutes of gameplay, where you can just walk in any direction or do whatever for 20 minutes, right? But it's not super finished. It's not super finished looking. Maybe not all of the systems are in the game, blah, blah, blah. Or you do like 5 minutes, or like enough for a gameplay trailer like this, right? Where it's super clean looking, nice and finished, polished looking in that 5-minute area, but you can't go outside of that. There's no more than that. You know, I'm sure they have stuff planned, but the 5 minutes looks super clean to drum up interest, like we're saying, to get maybe investors or, you know, whatever, financial support. Yeah, that's a very common way to do things.
To try to get funding and also to try to hire more people. They have said they want to keep a small development team, that they're not developing this large open world game. It's going to be very small in scope and focused on just quality gameplay loop. But nevertheless, yeah, they want to fund this thing and get more people on the team.
Here we go.
Wallet no Jutsu package.
This is what we bought from Rakuten, remember?
I saw a bunch of different questions on their threads. You know, people were asking when there would be a roadmap for development. Their response was, we'll share a roadmap as soon as we have funding for the game. They were also asked, hey, when will this game be playable? To which they said, we don't have even a rough estimate before we've secured funding. So securing funding is their primary goal. That is what they're aiming for.
Makes sense.
In terms of what kind of funding, well, their response was they're unsure exactly, but they are leaning towards just trying to find a publisher. Not only would that bring the money, but that could also help with much of the business end of producing and publishing a game.
Yeah.
And in that thread, they also said that they're open to crowdfunding, but probably aren't going to go that route. It's a lot of work, but on top of that, it also has a bad rep nowadays, which I mostly agree.
There's been multiple games now. It's not just one with a bad reputation. There's been multiple games now that fudged their development process just to keep the money rolling in, and then the game never released, and everybody lost their money. To the tune of, like, in, I think, one case, like $1 million or multiple millions of dollars. Like, it was bad. Really bad.
Especially knowing that this game's only been in development for a year. Feels like opening up to crowdfunding could set up a lot of people for disappointment, especially if it takes another 2 or 3 years to actually build a full game, because this was just a vertical slice. They've called it that themselves. This was just more like a proof of concept. On the other hand, though...
Exactly. That's what I was talking about. The 5-minute finished, polished looking, like, you can't really do a lot outside of that, but just to show really quickly some systems, whatever, combat, how it looks and feels, and then, hey, if you're interested, give us money so we can get serious.
Oh, that reveal trailer on IGN has already over 2 million views, and it's only been up for like 4 days. So
Holy
even if
cow.
it is just a vertical slice, clearly there's a lot of interest in that vertical slice.
Yes.
All in all, I think this game looks and sounds very cool, but it's also clearly very far off of release. I would not expect to get to play this even next year, maybe in 2024, but 2023 seems highly unlikely. But that said, I am happy to see a new, interesting looking game. That is one of my favorite aspects of this hobby. There's just
Dang, man. Blight Survival. That looks really cool. It actually looks really cool. And the concept, like everything behind it. It's a get in, do your missions or whatever, grab some epic loot, and get out game. It's essentially, yeah, like an escape from Tarkov, but totally pulling away from the FPS aspect. We're going old school, medieval times. Grab that sword and cut up some zombies. Like, what an interesting mix. That's pretty awesome.